Alright, welcome in everybody to the first committee meeting of the season, week 13. We have 7 on the committee. Some may join a little bit later on, but we only need 3 to conduct the meeting. This is after week 13, so there's only going to be 3 committee meetings this year. It is a change. We are starting a little bit later. And kind of the rules of the committee, obviously if your team is in discussion, you cannot discuss it or make a decision. And I just want to point out that I oftentimes wear 2 hats in the server. One when I'm an ECU dick rider and I'm really mean to Buffalo, and then the other one's when I'm a commissioner and when I'm actually in this setting for the playoff. I have no affiliation to any team. I always just want the best 8 in. So we're going through 1 through 25. Might be very different from the top 25 the coaches poll has had. We don't know, so we're going to go through it here. VOD is always recorded. We have D-Sleep and we have UE to start us out on the first committee meeting. But yeah, so let's get started here. Remember, we can only focus on things that have happened, so we can't consider things that are like a conference championship, right? It hasn't happened yet. We can consider a division win as kind of a tiebreaker. And then also injuries, we can consider if they've already happened. If we do need to check on an injury that might impact a team for like a playoff selection, we can check that at that time after conference championships, but not right now. So yeah, let's get into this. I mean, in my opinion, I think the top 4 is super easy, especially after after Arizona State and Nebraska lost this week. I think it's super easy. You have to put Clemson 1, national champions, still undefeated, and then Ohio State obviously 2, Ole Miss 3, and Buffalo 4. That's where I'm at for the top 4.
That's what I have for my top 4 as well.
Same here.
Because I think Ole Miss, their only loss is Northwestern. And
it was only a 2-point loss.
And the schedule's 10 times better than Buffalo's, so I think you just have to give it to them.
Beating
at this point.
that big win at Arkansas, when they were a top 10 team. You take Northwestern at the time. I think they had not a terrible record. I think they had lost a few cents, but with that being their only loss, when Northwestern felt like they were really continuing to roll, it's hard not to have them there.
Yeah, and then alright, so kind of how we do this is in the screen I can see anybody's schedules, and then we can obviously see division races and kind of see everything that's going on. So just before we go farther, let's just take a scope at what's going on. ACC, Clemson, definitely, we just ranked them. But Boston College will probably get ranked, and then there's just kind of a cluster of the 4 lost teams that we might talk about towards the end. In the American, it's pretty much only ECU, and then we might talk about Rutgers, who got a big win over Cincinnati today. Later on, the Big 12, Nebraska is going to be in that kind of weird 2-team or 2-loss team. Baylor as well, Arkansas and Kansas, obviously. And then I just realized is that Nebraska did already lock up this division, but Kansas and Baylor still don't, because remember, Baylor has that. Has the head-to-head, and they have Oklahoma State left, and then Kansas has to face Kansas State. So Kansas State can still screw over Fink. So they did not clinch it today. Big 10, we got Ohio State and Iowa. Those are clinched for their divisions. As far as rankings go, we're going to rank Minnesota for sure, and then Iowa. I typically like the rule of thumb that the committee ranks at least the Power 5 division winners, right? So we'll probably talk about them later. And maybe Michigan State, even though they were very disappointing today. Conference USA, Houston got a massive win over SMU. So we might talk about Houston a little later on when we get to those teen rankings. Notre Dame is going to be a big player here. And like I was saying before, we'll talk about it in a sec, the MAC obviously is only Buffalo. We're not ranking anybody else here. Ball State, maybe if they were to pull off an upset, but not right now. Mountain West, SDSU climbing. They're looking pretty good. Might sneak into our ranking, 7-0 in conference. They clinched their division. Pac-12, like I was saying before we started, Oregon has clinched and Utah has clinched, and that means the Pac-12, both 4 losses. Pac-12 will not have an automatic bid this season, so this season at least we're looking at 3 at-large teams, which is huge for many of these teams here. SEC, as far as ranking, some of these 7 and 4 teams, maybe. I think Oklahoma very impressive today. But the CCG is going to be Georgia and Ole Miss. That is clinched here, unless. Hold on.
Yeah, Georgia's out of conference for the last.
Yeah, no, Georgia has it because they have the head-to-head over Alabama. So Georgia's clinched. And then in the Sun Belt, it's Georgia Southern we will be ranking, and Arkansas State we will be ranking. So in terms of 2-loss teams right now, in this tier, obviously I can't speak on it, but this next tier is kind of, we've got Georgia, we've got Arizona State, we've got Notre Dame, we've got, no one here, you've got Nebraska and Baylor to talk about, you got ECU, and that's kind of it in this tier. So until you guys rank, until I can talk about any of the teams not named ECU right now. So what are you guys thinking at 5?
Well, I'd say, I don't know about at 5, but in terms of Notre Dame versus Georgia, Notre Dame does have the win over them. So
That's
I'd
true.
at least put Notre Dame over Georgia.
Now, it is a 2-point loss. It's not really that close, and then, or it is a close loss. What do you think, DC?
Yeah, so I had Georgia at 5. I thought that with that close loss, and then what I'm trying to remember who the other, their other loss to
LSU before.
Yeah, the opening week to LSU, where we thought that they were going to be, better than they are. They're hovering around 500, but again, another team that started out strong. It seemed like, so they got LSU at their strongest. I think that with that close loss and with the Notre Dame close loss, everything else that they have done has either been a win or a dominant win. I think that they are absolutely a top 5 team here in college football right now.
So Georgia, obviously the rough OT loss opening week 0, right? And then Notre Dame was their only other loss. In terms of wins, right? Like, some of these wins look really good when they happen, but then they're not really that good. This TAAMU is a good win. That's quality, so we'll count that. But then this Texas win at the time was probably a ranked win, 2 points, kind of big. Tennessee, obviously, complete fall off. Bama's their other quality win. And then outside of that, they haven't played anyone with a winning record, right? Now, so look at that there. For me, if my team obviously isn't being brought up, but there's 3. This is a 3-horse race for me. It's Georgia, Notre Dame, or Baylor then for this spot. But if you look at Notre Dame, obviously they started out really, really good. They beat Georgia, and then these 2 losses were to backup quarterbacks, right? And then they've rattled off 3 quality wins in a row. I don't know how we want to rank that. And then in terms of Baylor, they're in the exact same boat as Notre Dame as well, where both their losses are because of their backup quarterback, Colorado and Arkansas. And then once again, they've rattled off 3 good wins, and then they have the Cincy win, which looks worse and worse every week. I don't think Kent State's all that great. Duke's an okay win, but no upper tier wins. In terms of top tier wins, you got to give it to Notre Dame. But I don't know. I think we all have different opinions on this pick. That's hilarious. So you have Notre Dame at 5, and DCP, you have Georgia.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Well, I mean, if we have to do it, if we're kind of considering in the same tier, I think then the head-to-head, doesn't that have to matter?
That's fair. I think that where and obviously it's a issue of an independent versus a team in conference, but
Yeah.
maybe it's something where Georgia can prove it later. But I feel like with Georgia having clinched their division already and having that opportunity for that conference game, I think with that extra game, obviously, that's 2 weeks away. So that might be getting the cart before the horse. But I think that having that division championship on their resume puts them a little bit ahead of me for Notre Dame. I know Notre Dame doesn't have an opportunity for that, but I feel like just having that, that in division competition and beating, everybody out for it puts them a little ahead for me.
Yeah. I think for me, like, one, the head-to-head obviously needs to matter. I do think the SEC is a big W for Georgia in terms that they have the division win, and then they also have a chance to beat Ole Miss and actually win it and get in automatically. So this may not even matter in a couple weeks, but I think the fact that Georgia lost clean to Notre Dame, full strength both sides, and then Georgia also tripped up against LSU. It was a great start to the year for them, whatever, right? But then Notre Dame's losses were clearly because they didn't have Bart Rogers, their quarterback. I think that for me, you have to give it to Notre Dame. You have to put them the head-to-head slightly above, even though the losses are a lot worse. They have the head-to-head, and there's a clear reason why they lost those games.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I can concede to that for sure.
All right, so right now we can do, we'll slate in Notre Dame and then Georgia. We can always come back or talk about if somebody else joins, right? But all right, so now we're at 7 teams in this range. We still have the 2 one-loss teams who lost, so Arizona State and then Nebraska. You have Baylor, and then you also have ECU. So where do you guys want to go from here?
So I would. Oh, sorry. You go ahead, Yui.
I'm thinking either Baylor or ECU here.
Yeah, and for me, I had Georgia, then Notre Dame, then ECU at 7, and Baylor at 8. So I would, if it were my choice, I would slot in ECU there at 7. I think that it's the same thing of they've already clinched their division. They've, besides that Wisconsin loss, which again was an overtime loss on BearCave, it was a fantastic game.
Okay.
But that, as much as we want to say, Baylor being in a stronger conference, they they are on the outside looking in as far as a division win and a championship game, whereas ECU has already clinched their division. So I just would lean more ECU's way for 7 and slot in Baylor at that 8 spot.
I can agree with that as well.
Okay, so ECU 7, Baylor 8. And it's weird. It's almost the carbon copy of last year. It came down to ECU and Baylor, a discussion about at 4 and 5. We ended up playing each other anyways. So, all right. So 7 and 8. So that's our top 8 right now. So if everything ended today, we would have we have Clemson, Ohio State, Ole Miss, Buffalo, Notre Dame, Georgia, ECU, and Baylor. So, in terms of the auto bids, quote unquote auto bids, this would be a fine. It would work with the 3 at-larges being Notre Dame, Georgia, and ECU. But that Baylor versus depends on who would win the Big 12, right? But now, when we're looking at the rest of this, we have 2 more 2-loss teams. I don't know if we want to rank them right now or we want to start ranking other teams. We got Boston College, who had 3 losses. AAC's done for now. Big 12, obviously Nebraska, Kansas, and Arkansas are in this range. And then Big 10, you've got Minnesota we got to start thinking about. Maybe Houston, not this high though. We already ranked Notre Dame, so Independent's done. MAC is done. Mountain West, San Diego State way later. Pac-12, Arizona State at some point, maybe Cal at some point. Obviously, I think we need to rank both Oregon and Utah. I like ranking the division winners. And then here we got some 4-loss teams, and then finally you got the Sun Belt, Arkansas State and Georgia Southern. Welcome in Dogwater. I'll just catch up where we're at. We're at number 9. That's where we're ranking. The rankings right now is Clemson, Ohio State, Ole Miss, Buffalo, and then you've got Notre Dame, Georgia, ECU, and Baylor. Anything that you're like, hell no?
I mean, I don't really like Georgia being over ECU, to be honest.
Yeah, I didn't say. I think this top 8 is good, a good starting spot. But I think for me at 9,
going on about good losses and stuff, and you have less losses than Georgia. I think that's later on down the line, maybe at large stage, but not right now.
Yeah, not right now. For me right now, clearing away the best team I think left is Nebraska. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I was going to say Nebraska.
Yeah, I had it between Nebraska and Kansas for that 9. I had Kansas, Arkansas, and Nebraska at that 9, 10, 11 spot that I wasn't quite sure which one to put where, but I know, spicy take, but...
Well, I actually like Kansas here, too. Can we see their schedule?
Yes.
Yeah.
So Nebraska has the head-to-head over Arkansas. Unfortunately, they didn't face Kansas. And then Arkansas, they have the loss to Nebraska. They beat Baylor, lost to Ole Miss, okay? And then Kansas, they haven't played any of these teams. So they lost to Oklahoma, lost to Ohio, obviously that was a game day, lost to Baylor. So there's not, honestly, there's like no wins on here besides ISU.
Yeah, I'd put Nebraska over them. Never mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Baylor, just looks like a team that is like kind of like Notre Dame last couple of years. They win the easy games, and then anytime they are even pressured, they lose. Okay, so are we all in agreement? Nebraska.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so we're kind of staying in the Big 12. Just for devil's advocate, I want to see ASU. Dogwater, you haven't heard, but obviously Pac-12 has lost their auto bid because it's going to be Oregon and Utah.
Oh, yeah, I already knew.
Yeah, so looking here, a big win over Cal. I don't know where we're going to rank Cal. They did lose by 1 point to Oregon. Dominated the rest of these teams, and then lost a toughie to Utah. It's just kind of the same as honestly, this is comparable to Kansas in my opinion. Outside the fact that they actually got one of those good wins. So, in my opinion, I don't know, man. Where do you go? Do you go?
So, another spicy take. So 9 we have Nebraska. I have Arkansas at 10, Kansas at 11, and I don't have Arizona State until 13.
Who do you have at 12?
I have Boston College at 12.
Boston College, yeah, we should probably take a look.
I think that
College,
they were a number 11 team that could have been even with their losses could have been a top 10, and losing as pretty much as time expired to the number 1 team at the number 1 team. It's hard to, put too much flack on them for such a quality game at such a tough place to play, and bringing it down to quite literally the last second.
Yeah, it's like Florida State's loss to them. It was, they choked the 7-point lead, but it's more impressive than a negative, honestly. But looking at NC State losses and Virginia Tech, they're not necessarily bad losses. But yeah, we could kind of go any way we want here. I don't think there's a bad decision because we don't have any head-to-heads to consider. I'm just trying to see. Like, Kansas has 3 losses. Arkansas does 2. Arkansas's losses, So if we're looking at Arkansas, right? First 2 games of the season, you lost to Nebraska, and then remember Iowa State had Kiko Strong. They're a top 25 team when Kiko's healthy, and then they rattle off 8 straight with a big win at Baylor, big win over Alabama. West Virginia was good here too.
And they had Ole Miss that lost 2 weeks ago now. Now they've had 2 weeks of nothing, which is kind of makes it really hard when you don't have a week 12 or week 13 game to really get a feel on them.
Yeah, I'd be fine putting Arkansas as the next team, but there's really no bad move here. What do you guys think, Yui?
I'm thinking Arkansas looks really good here.
All right, so that's 3. Dogwater, I don't know if you're gonna chime in, but we got Arkansas.
Yeah, I'm cool with Arkansas.
At 10. All right, so we got Nebraska, Arkansas. I would probably favor Arizona State over Kansas, just for the fact that they have the win over Cal. These are 2 teams that beat the bad teams and then struggle against the good teams, but they actually got this win on Cal, which I think is important. Whereas Kansas, their best win is Michigan or Iowa State.
They still had Kiko Strong in September, is that right?
I think this is the game he went down, if I'm not mistaken.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I
who knows if
remember
it impacted it.
Yeah.
Or he might have thrown the interception. I don't know. Or do we go Boston College here? Does Boston College have any big wins? Florida State's a good one.
Those back-to-back NC State and Virginia Tech ones are,
Troubling.
real hard plays. But yeah, beating FSU, beating Illinois before they cut their coordinator. It just seems overall they're a good team, and it's hard to knock them down very far. But it also doesn't feel right after a loss to leave them at the exact same spot they were before.
Right. I'm voting Arizona State. Here's my thought, is they have the best win out of these 3 over Cal. They also, their 2 losses are to Oregon and Utah, who are playing in the Pac-12 championship. So I think that, in my opinion, trumps.
I'm okay with Arizona State. That's who I kind of wanted to put in there.
Yeah, I'm also alright with Arizona State here.
Okay. My vote would still be for Kansas there, but 3 votes takes it.
Now, I think Kansas probably at 12 over Boston College. I just don't think Boston College can get rewarded for a loss that doesn't make any sense 2 in a row. Like, Oklahoma is a good team. We just saw that they could absolutely explode. We saw that today. Ohio, this was a game day game. He erased a 22-point deficit in the rain. It was double overtime, and like that was just a fluke. But better than losing by 2 touchdowns randomly in 2 weeks in a row. And then the Baylor obviously was another game day game. So yeah, I'm fine going Kansas and then Boston College.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah.
All right, so just going back through quickly, we got Clemson, Ohio State, Ole Miss, Buffalo, Notre Dame, Georgia, East Carolina, Baylor, Nebraska, Arkansas, Arizona State, Kansas, Boston College. All right, so we're at 14 here. So I think we're past the majority of the true kind of playoff dark horses, right? Or the true playoff contenders, at least. But where do we go from here at 14? I don't personally. I'm not on the Florida State bandwagon anymore.
No.
Just so you guys know, I already figured out the scenario for this conference. North Carolina faces Duke, okay, and Miami already has the head-to-head over both Duke and UNC. So and they face Pitt. So if Pitt wins next week, or if Miami wins, they win the conference, or they win the division. If they lose, then it becomes whoever wins between Duke and UNC. So that's just the scenario for you guys for next week. But
Very interesting.
yeah, that's gonna be a weird one. We've already ranked the 4 major players here. West Virginia lost. I think
Personally,
Minnesota.
I have Minnesota.
Yeah.
Yep, that's who I have at 14.
Well, that's what
Minnesota.
I didn't realize I was muted, but I was asking, did Minnesota win or lose today?
They beat the Wisconsin Badgers 44-30.
Yeah, that's who I'd like here.
Yeah, 3-point loss to Clemson. They beat Washington. That's quality. Penn State. Iowa's the only trip up, but they won the division. Illinois, they are them. So, okay. Minnesota 14. I am more than happy to put them there. I think they're a solid team. As far as Iowa, I still think we got to rank them. Not right now. In terms of the next G5, this is interesting. Houston's a player here. Win over UNC, got smoked by Michigan State, then lost to Louisiana, and beat SMU.
Honestly, I think the next 3 could be G5s. I think that it's between Arkansas State, Georgia Southern, and Houston are, for me at least, makes sense as the next 3.
Now, what about Cal?
Cal fits in.
Cal, I have them at 18.
18.
Yeah, so I have 15 Arkansas State, 16 Gasso, 17 Houston, 18 Cal.
Yeah. The thing about California here is that Syracuse loss is so weird. 45-6, and then back-to-back loss to ASU, right? A couple good wins with LSU and Washington, but they're not elite like we thought. And then the Oregon game, they choked. Florida got back, but Florida's bad this year. I'm fine. Let's see. I mean, my vote's Arkansas State. They're clear in a way the best G5 remaining in terms of just talent and ability to win a game. I think that they are very, very good.
Yeah, there are a lot of multiple storylines on this resume. I think, I think you gotta put them up.
Yeah, if we're going G5, I think Arkansas State's the team.
Agreed.
All right, we got 3. So Georgia Southern, they do have that win over Michigan State, which honestly at this point doesn't look nearly as good. And then same with Iowa State. Then a weird loss to USF, but they didn't have their quarterback. Then you got Houston. So I think you have to rank Georgia Southern over Houston just solely on the common opponent with Michigan State.
Yeah, I would
Georgia
agree
Southern
there.
won it. Yeah.
I think that at that 16 spot, this is where that conversation between Georgia Southern and Cal comes in.
Yeah. So in terms of top wins, right? Best win, probably it would go to Georgia Southern with the Michigan State win over like an LSU or Washington. In terms of losses, the loss to USF is very bad, but they have one less one. And it did have an injury attached to it. So I'm fine putting Georgia Southern above them. Yeah, I feel I would be fine with that, because then you got Arkansas State, Georgia Southern setting up the Sun Belt Championship game.
Yeah, that's where I'd go as well.
All right, so are we good with Georgia Southern, then Cal, then Houston?
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Dogwater, what do you think?
I'm like dying over here.
All right, so we're now at 19. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 spots left, and I think this is when it gets kind of crazy. We can kind of go any way we want. So, typically in this situation, historically, what we've done is we've just gone through all the conferences at this point and like shout out teams that we would rank, and then at the end we'll do kind of process of elimination. So from the ACC, do we think Florida State's rankable? I do.
I do.
Yeah, they're right.
All right. Miami. Louisville lost.
Personally, I would not.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have them and Duke just outside.
Duke had a crazy bad loss. They have the head-to-head loss to Miami. I think probably if you rank somebody in this division at this point, it has to be Miami because they're 5-0 against it. So might have to revisit this division.
Yeah.
American.
Florida State for sure, though.
Yeah, American. I would rank Rutgers, but
Yeah,
I
that
don't
was a
think
good.
anybody else is worthy of a ranking.
Yeah.
Big 12, West Virginia lost this week. They have a bad schedule. I've gone through this before, but it's just that Missouri loss is so bad.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I don't know about that
Agreed.
one. Big 10, Iowa we have to rank. That's like a must because they're a division winner.
After this week, I honestly took out Michigan State.
Me too. It's like you can't
3 straight losses,
You can't
31
switch your
points
quarterback.
for the most recent. Yeah.
You can't.
All of
and
them
then
being
lose to
double-digit.
State. Yeah,
All
I'm out
double-digit
on
losses. Just not good.
Yeah, it's irritating. But I mean, he got injuries as well. SMU maybe at the back end if we're like struggling, but they kind of fell under pressure. Only 1 win, 2 wins over 500. The Miami and the Tulsa game. So outside looking in maybe. So I'll write them down, but.
Yeah, I had them ranked, so.
Mac, Ball State, no.
No.
Unless there's something insane. Los Ohio, Bowling Green, Western Michigan. Yeah, no good wins outside of the conference. Okay. Mountain West, I think you got to talk about San Diego State. Their 3 losses are 2 of the top 4 teams in Michigan State.
Yep,
So
I have them in.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about them. UNLV lost to Houston, beat Arkansas State. That's actually a pretty quality win. Fresno though, and SDSU. If you ranked them, we would have to put them below SDSU. I'll write them down, but that's a fringe for me.
Yeah.
Pac-12, we have to rank both these teams, Oregon and Utah at some point. Pac Aurora in a CCG, Dogwater. How do you feel?
I haven't cared about this season since Washington.
Yeah, no, I feel you. Alabama, all ranked losses, no good wins outside Kent State. How do you feel about that?
I don't have them in personally.
Alabama from my
kind of the same deal for A&M. Better teams they've lost to. I mean, they lost to 3 of the top 6 teams, but Texas and LSU aren't necessarily crazy. Oklahoma, I do think they deserve a rank, especially after what they just did.
Yeah. The whole thing is like, Arizona's had a bad season, but we're actually a really good game day team, and they made us look like dog shit. So.
Yeah, that was eye-opening. Yeah, that was an impressive game. Okay, and then Sun Belt. I think we're out on the Sun Belt. Okay. So what I've written down is we have, like I said, 7 spots. We have 3 teams we have to rank. We have to rank Iowa, Oregon, Utah, And then
One other
outside
team
of-
I don't know
okay.
if we mentioned. What do we think on the Raging Cajuns? Louisiana at a CUSA.
Cajuns. I think that if they would have kept Flynn Saunders, they'd be in the playoff this year. But
I think so too.
they beat Houston. They beat Iowa State, which that win doesn't look nearly as good. ULM has had crazy upset potential all season. We can write them down. I think they're kind of a fringe team.
Yeah,
But-
I had them at 24,
Yeah.
but it's one of those that I feel like is worth being in the discussion.
Yeah, I think these last 7 rankings, you could put literally anyone in here and no one could complain. All right, so I have the 3 we have to rank, which is Iowa, Oregon, Utah, and then that would leave 1, 2, 3, 4 spots, and I have 8 teams written down. So I have FSU, Miami, Rutgers, SMU, SDSU, UNLV, Oklahoma, and Louisiana.
I like Oklahoma over every single one of those teams. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I would put Oklahoma and FSU for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
If I had to pick
Yeah.
the 4 right off the top of my head, I would go FSU, Oklahoma, like not in order. FSU, Oklahoma, San Diego State, and SMU would be the 4 that I would grab.
I agree
mean,
with
I
you,
would
except
order-
I'd put in Rutgers over SMU, but I think
Yeah, I like
SDSU.
That's fair. They would have been my number. They were my right on the edge with SMU and Rutgers.
So let's
I think it should
just
go with
before.
FSU then Oklahoma. Because if we think about FSU was one fluke play away from beating the number 1 team in the nation.
Well, I'm just writing down the teams we're going to rank. We'll get into the rankings in a second, but let's decide this SMU versus Rutgers first. So, quality win over Miami, so I think SMU has to be over Miami. So, Miami's out. Other win, Tulsa, whatever. This loss to Houston, meh. The UCLA loss is a lot better than you would think. And then let's see Rutgers.
Also, that was they fell off these last couple of weeks, but that was like the first hit for Tulsa before they really fell off. So they were still hitting on all cylinders at that point.
And then Rutgers here, 2 tough losses to start the year. Once again, though, week 1 and 2, you don't really know your team. Then you start rattling off wins. They do have an out-of-conference win over a P5, so this is similar to the Miami win, but you kind of got to give the Miami win a little bit more merit. And then obviously it's the AAC schedule. Good win here over Navy. Army, also a fun win, and then Cincy. So they're really starting to hit their stride here. These last 3 have been ever since the Marshall stumble. But I would probably just with how the season has gone, probably SMU is the pick here.
Yeah, I would
Over
agree.
Rutgers. Okay. All right. So
The only argument I would make for Rutgers is that NC State did beat Boston College pretty handily, and so having that, obviously it's a transitive win at that point, but being able to beat the team that beat, for us, a top 12 team in the nation at this point is nothing to scoff at either. Like on Rutgers' side.
Yeah. All right, so I think SMU. So here's our 7. We just got to figure out a ranking list now. So we got Iowa, Oregon, Utah, Oklahoma, FSU, SDSU, and SMU. It's a lot of S's. All right. I think, in my opinion, Oregon's the best team left in terms of like deserving or where we should go from here.
Yeah, they have a lot of good wins.
I would like to see them versus Oklahoma. I think those would be the
You
top
think
2
those
there.
are the 2? Okay. So
Yeah.
we'll go through those. Ohio State, can't do anything about it. Penn State, overtime, week 1. Okay. Georgia Tech, that's not that great of a loss. And then the Boise, obviously, the Boise loss is really bad. And then, but they do have that win over ASU. That's
And the win over Cal.
And the win over Cal. And the win over Washington. So those are the kind of, and the win over Arizona. So those are kind of the calling cards for Oregon. And then we said Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Oklahoma wins the common opponent with Arizona. They destroyed them, right? So you got a Bama win, that's pretty good. The LSU loss in OT, similar to the Penn State loss. I'm fine with that. The Ohio State loss, similar to the Ole Miss loss. Now the Ole Miss loss looks better. And then a big Kansas win that's equal kind of to the Arizona State game. And then Texas loss and an Auburn loss. It just looks weird. So these are like the same exact teams.
The Auburn loss is comparable to the Boise loss.
No, Boise's worse, but it's still
You say
like an
you say
out-of-pocket loss.
Boise's worse, but it was only a 3-point loss versus where
That's
Auburn,
true.
which is a bad team, beat them by
24.
24, beat them handily.
That's true.
So I think that evens it out to a lot closer of a spot.
Yeah.
And the Texas A&M one is also nothing to scoff at as far as a win for Oklahoma. That's a good win on a team that. Yeah.
Common opponent wise, the Arizona is the thing that it's 69-24 obviously versus 45-31. So both kind of blowouts. Obviously 14 versus 30. The thing is, Oregon started out 1-3 and they rattled off 6-1. That's just doesn't make sense. It's a pick and choose. Do we go based on common opponent and give it to Oklahoma, or do we just give Oregon because they have the division?
I think you got to go division.
I would give it.
Yeah, I would go division. I go Oregon.
Oregon, and then do we just want to go Oklahoma next?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
All right. So got those two off. Now remaining we have is Iowa, Utah, FSU, SDSU, and SMU. I think probably looking at Iowa versus Utah would be my choice next.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
Yeah.
I would lean Iowa on that, but I think it's a good one to compare.
Okay, Utah obviously struggled out the gate. I mean, yeah, look at these terrible losses. I might even just do we put them lower?
Honestly, I know that they won the division, but they were a team when you said that we have to rank them because they won the division. I was like, do we? They're the one exception that I would almost make. If I could put them at 26, I would. But they almost are one of those that I would sit at that 23, 24, 25 area. I
would think Utah was lower. I think Iowa clearly better. The Minnesota win, Penn State win, which we've seen a lot around here on these last few rankings. They also plastered Purdue. The Michigan loss sucks, but then they have a chance to prove themselves again against Nebraska. So I would go Iowa next.
Agreed.
Yep.
Okay, so now
I'm thinking Florida State might come.
I was thinking Florida State as well.
Florida State, and then let's just check like SDSU. I think would be the only team that would even touch them. I'm brain farting. Mountain West.
What are we at now? 21 or 22?
We're at 22, so 4 more teams to rank. Obviously, their 3 losses are against good teams. We're not going to rank Michigan State, but Washington State's meh. Air Force, whatever. And then nothing. Win over UNLV. Fresno, okay. So SDSU, kind of their thing is like they have some of the best losses in the country. Northwestern's a good team. Maryland's kind of weird. The loss to Clemson, BC, obviously.
Yeah.
It's I think I'm fine going to FSU.
Yeah, I think the Maryland one is the only like weird one. The other 3 are very understandable losses.
Yeah. And there's just no wins for SDSU other than UNLV. So I mean, here as well, you're kind of looking for the quality wins, and they're hard to find, but Miami and NC State. Yeah. All right. Well, FSU, and then I think you go. Do you want to go FSU, San Diego State, SMU, and then Utah at 25?
That would be where I would lean.
Yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too.
All right. So
Then basically it's just Rutgers is 26 on the outside looking in.
yeah, pretty much.
If it weren't
Rutgers
for
and
that
Miami.
Utah division win, I would honestly put them above them. But
All right, so I'm gonna walk back through this here. We got Clemson, Ohio State, Ole Miss, Buffalo, Notre Dame, Georgia, ECU, Baylor, Nebraska, Arkansas, Arizona State, Kansas, Boston College, Minnesota, Arkansas State, Georgia Southern, California, Houston, Oregon, Oklahoma, Iowa, Florida State, SDSU, SMU, and Utah. Whew. All right.
the only one I would sorry, I know it's going
go ahead.
back a distance, but Dogwater did make a good point when he came in. I would be if could we see the schedule for ECU versus Georgia one more time, because I could be, the more I think about it, the more I could be convinced to put ECU above Georgia on that one.
So ECU 10-1. Here is their schedule.
Okay, I think that the Texas A&M win is really good on their end.
Georgia.
They also have a Texas A&M.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, I just think their two losses are terrible though. Like LSU just kind of just left out of the game like midway through the season. Notre Dame, just to me, is not that great of a team even at 9-2.
Well,
And
Notre Dame is a quality loss.
I was
They're
going to say
number
that
5.
yeah, we do have them at 5. I think that it also comes down to Wisconsin. They lost before Wisconsin lost that their running back, who was kind of their big chunk of their offense. So having to face off against Stingley or Stingely,
Kim Stingley.
Stingley, that was it. Okay, so yeah, facing off against Kim Stingley in that one and losing by only 3 in overtime. They're much better. Wisconsin is a better team than their record shows when they have Stingley on the field. If we wanted to flip these two and put ECU over Georgia, I would not be mad about it. What do you and Dogwater? What do you two think?
I personally like ECU over Georgia here. I think we're a little too early to be going, oh well, these 2 losses are better than this 1 loss. I'm not really a big fan of it at this point of the season.
Yeah, Wisconsin, on paper or performance-wise, if they're getting any stimuli, they'll be a way better team than LSU. And ECU is like 1 bad play away from being undefeated.
Because I'm also the type of person that I'm one of the big undefeated guys, but I'm also 1 loss is not worse than 2 losses.
Yeah. Good play.
Yeah. Okay. And Dogwater, are you good with ECU at 6 over Georgia?
Yeah.
Okay, so we got 3 for that. So let's flip those 2.
All right. So ECU 6, Georgia 7, Baylor 8, and just before we get out of here, previewing what the playoff would look like in this scenario, you'd have a rematch of the national championship in the first round, Clemson and Baylor. At the 2-7 line, you'd have Ohio State, Georgia. At the 3-6 line, Ole Miss versus ECU. And then at the 4-5 matchup, it would be Buffalo and Notre Dame.
Sounds like a pretty damn good playoff to me.
So, all right. So I'm gonna end the video.